Here with us now, New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof back on the show. It's nice to have you. Your latest piece I read on Pakistan, it scared me.
It's a scary place.
As it should. You spent a lot of time there. We actually have a portion of what you wrote, which we'll read to our viewers right now. It's a pretty bleak picture. Here we go. I've been coming to Pakistan for 26 years, ever since I hid on the tops of buses to sneak into tribal areas as a backpacking university student, and I never found Pakistanis so gloomy. Some worry that militants nurtured by illiteracy and a failed education system will overrun the country, or that the nation will break apart. I'm not quite that pessimistic, but it's very likely that the next major terror attack in the West is being planned by extremists here in Pakistan. And, well, yes, that's been the worry ever since we put our focus on Iraq.
Yeah.
And where were they reconstituting?
Well, I mean, it's getting worse and worse, and especially in the northwest and around Peshawar, major Pakistani town. It is essentially more or less controlled largely by the Taliban now.
But do you know that in the last block we were talking to Richard Engel about what exactly is going to be so difficult about dealing with Afghanistan? I mean, these are frontiers of trouble that are brewing.
And I'm afraid that the Obama administration as well, their solution instinctively seems to be send more troops. And, we've tried that in a lot of places, and I'm a little skeptical of that approach.
So what would you do?
Education.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any easy, simple solution, but we have to get Pakistan more part of the solution. In Pakistan, I think we're doing more damage than good right now by bombing people periodically in the tribal areas. And I think working with the tribal leaders, both in southern Afghanistan and in western Pakistan, trying to improve education, social services there, it's going to be a step toward gradually stabilizing the area.
During the presidential campaign, when Obama was talking about Pakistan, it was Obama talking tough. It was about how willing and under what circumstances he would be ready to cross that border militarily with some kind of strike. What would he send in to get bin Laden if he knew what tent bin Laden was in? All that sort of stuff. But really nothing else. What would you have liked to hear from the president-elect's campaign about Pakistan during the campaign, and where should they go now?
Well, everybody's assumption was, of course, that he didn't really mean it, that he was trying to, be tough vis-a-vis McCain. I think that, and Pakistanis by and large don't believe it either, but, at the end of the day, we spent $10 billion in Pakistan since 9/11. $10 billion. And it's accomplished nothing except to make us more hated throughout Pakistan, complicated our relations with Afghanistan. We've spent some small fraction of that on education.
Let's go back to the possibility that he might have actually meant it.
Okay.
Is that a good idea?
Well, you do need leverage, and you do need to have some ability to whack people, but your ability to whack improves if you're also building schools, for example. And if we get Zawahiri in our sights in Pakistan, of course we've got to knock him out. But the way we've been doing it right now has been to incline toward dropping bombs on people we don't really know who they are. If there's somebody really tall with a lot of people around him, we think, that might be Osama, let's knock him out.
What is your sense of the impact of the economic distress? In other words, to the extent to which Pakistan is dependent on an international funding system that basically keeps some of those schools functioning, some of the food being distributed, and now there is simply less money. It's one thing to have one car instead of two. It's another thing to be Pakistan.
It makes it really scary. I mean, I think it increases the chance that Pakistan is just going to fall apart. And
it makes nuclear material more valuable. Although, I can get to very scary scenarios in economic distress in a place like that.
Absolutely. And likewise, I think Venezuela and China are. If we think it's bad here, imagine being head of the Politburo in China.
Let's put up those steps that you think should be taken toward Pakistan again. I like that graphic. Number one, slow the financial flow of Pakistan's government and the military. Cut tariffs on Pakistani agricultural and manufactured products. Push for a peace deal in Kashmir. Focus on education. And our next president is going to have the time to do that 1, 2, 3, 4, given everything else. I mean, how do you prioritize Pakistan unless it's simmering over?
Pakistan is not only simmering over, I mean, it's really at risk of boiling over, partly because of that economic issue. And if you think Afghanistan is a problem, I mean, the downside of Afghanistan falling apart is it's a new Somalia. It goes back to what it was. It supports terrorism. Pakistan, if it boils over, then it has somewhere around 150 nuclear warheads that could fall into the hands of terrorists. If there is a nuclear explosion in Times Square, it is very likely because of fissile material taken from Pakistan.
And that's why I bring up the economic aspects of it. In other words, we have to be what he's saying is more critical than you think. In other words, this is not just somebody else's problem.
No, he made it sound critical.
No,
he really did. You think it doesn't sound critical because he wasn't yelling?
I wasn't saying him.
It sounded critical.
I was saying people in the world in general, I think sometimes will discount some of these aspects as distant issues, and I think that your point is well made, that it is
wait till
not
that
a
dirty bomb
distant
goes
issue.
off in the U.S.
Oh, God.
Let's talk about it.
See that volume he used for dirty bomb, and she's fainting.
Will you stop? Will you knock it off?
I will stop.
I mean, please.
Covered the one big major attack of our lifetime, and when you say things like that, and you're dead serious about the possibilities, it is chilling.
Our intelligence historically has been terrible with Pakistan. We discovered that they had developed a nuclear weapon when we read it in the paper. No one ever from the intelligence community walked into the President of the United States and said, "Hey, the Pakistanis are moving. We're going to have an Islamic bomb soon." No. We discovered it after the fact.
It's worse than ever now in Pakistan because basically U.S. diplomats and intelligence officers are prisoners of the embassy. They don't go anywhere. They can't even stay in the major hotel in Islamabad. So we don't know what is going on at all. I mean, even businesses, they sit in Dubai and then send, American expats sit in Dubai, send Pakistani nationals into Pakistan to manage businesses. So we don't know what is going on. The one hopeful thing that struck me is that Obama, you asked about Obama earlier, and he does resonate in Pakistan in an interesting way. That on the one hand, people are terrified about what he said about bombing things in the tribal areas. On the other hand, the idea of somebody actually rising without a lot of patronage and coming to lead a country like that in a place like Pakistan that has such a feudal leadership, that has had the worst governance of just about any country you can imagine, and that has been crippled as a result, that really resonates with a lot of people who would just love to think about some kind of a grassroots movement to improve their leadership.
Okay, I guess there's one sort of glimmer of hope, possibly.
I wanted to leave you with something to think about besides the dirty bomb.
But we appreciate your insight with all the time that you have spent there in other regions of the world, and your writings are worth reading as they appear in the paper. Nicholas Kristof, thank you very,
actually learn
very
things when you read
learn
Nicholas
something.
Kristof.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Thank you, man.
Dylan, did you learn something?
As opposed to when you read what?
Most of the rest of a newspaper. You are
I just want to be very clear what the contrast was.
It's years and years of insight, which we really appreciate. Come back.
Hey, thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy to do so. Enjoy the
All
turkey.
right.